to find out what your plans are, like you're going to be on the boat, you're going to be in London, like, etc., and also what your travel plans are for Japan.
Yeah, so, the main thing right now is just getting Chia over here first. I'm sort of like chilling on the boat, enjoying boat life until she comes, and then I think our plan is to try and move into somewhere quite quickly. I'd like to move off the boat before winter again. Winter is quite difficult, and I don't really want to like push that on Chia-chan, because I was fine when I could just layer up, put loads of clothes on, and it was only me who had to suffer, but having Chia-chan suffering as well would be quite difficult. So I think before winter I'd like to move off, and then we'd be living in London somewhere. So if we had a spare room, you'd absolutely be welcome to stay, both of you. That's a great option, as long as we have moved out before then. Basically, like, I'm starting to think about like where we're going to end up eventually, sort of where we're going to settle down. London, London's not really the kind of place where you settle down, so we're sort of looking for a little bit, maybe in the countryside, or on the way to the countryside at least. As for Japan, I leave on the 11th of May, so it's like almost next week. It's mad. Less than 2 weeks away, and I'm going to fly into Osaka and then stay in Kyoto for my quarantine, which will be 3 days, and then we're going to go straight to Tokyo, stay in Tokyo for probably like 3 or 4 days, and then come back to Kyoto, spend the rest of the time there.
That's cool. Have you got some friends that you want to see in Tokyo?
Oh yes,
a few people.
Yeah, we're gonna go to some nice izakaya and like invite everybody and just have a great night. I'm just gonna get wasted on Japanese whiskey.
Yeah. No, that sounds beautiful. It's a good moment to look forward to. Yeah. I dream about it too sometimes, actually getting back, especially in the summertime, because it's obviously coming into winter here. But and you can hear the cicadas, and you got that sort of humidity just following you everywhere. Kids playing sports outside, just like the whole ambiance. Maybe even the fireworks. Sorry, you got me going now.
This is like last in the pod with Taylor, I asked him, what is the sound of Japan for you? And I was almost half expecting him to say the cicadas. I kind of thought he was going to say like, I remember just the deafening, because it really is a very, very invasive sound, isn't it? You just always hear these cicadas, like as soon as you wake up in the morning, all the way through the day. And I remember the first time I heard them, I had no idea what they were, and I thought it was like construction work or something, because they really sound quite mechanical and robotic, don't they? Even though they're creatures. But this is like the sound of Japan, right? These cicadas.
Yeah, I mean, it never bothered me actually, but I can appreciate there is this kind of generated sort of sound, because it is quite robotic and almost metallic, But yeah, man, summertime is the good days, because I always remember the imprint of it for me was, that was when a lot of transition happened when I was first in Japan. It was like the summer was the middle of my year there when I was doing my exchange, and it was when all of the previous students left and then new ones came, but I happened to stay the two terms, and so it was this kind of period of change. And I remember I went to Okinawa, and it was so hot, and just like it's like summer break, and it was strange as well, because it was the first time I had experienced a northern hemisphere summer, in August, and so it was this euphoric feeling, because we have, as we've talked about before, in New Zealand we get like just this dreary winter, and nothing really happens, and so you've just got 4 months of like nothing really. 3 or 4 months of just cold and nothing to look forward to, and then to suddenly break that cycle with a beautiful summer of journeying and romance and all of that. It was quite blissful.
What's the summer in Japan like compared to New Zealand? Do you get the hot, humid summers in New Zealand?
No, it's kind of Mediterranean, warm. A lot of, we get a double whammy though. It's a funny cultural thing because we get summer and Christmas and all of that just wrapped up into one big unit. And so, you've got just long summer breaks over December. People get away, and you go and see family for Christmas and that sort of thing, have a barbecue outside, but go swimming down at the beach, that sort of thing. But it's all it all comes together, and people don't really come back to sort of until the end of January, maybe early February. That's sort of the beginning of going back to normal. But yeah, it's beautiful, but then you make up for it because autumn and winter are just nothing. And they're beautiful in their own right, but it is quite difficult, man.
I remember I spent Christmas in Australia, in Melbourne, and it was my first summer in December, and it was something like 40 degrees. Like, it was super hot on Christmas Day, and we went down to the beach, and just lying on the beach on Christmas Day is just the most bizarre thing for somebody from our part of the world.
I've spent a Christmas in Australia as well, and it's even hotter over there. And so I don't know. I mean, again, that was sort of the beautiful old days, because that was in Sydney, and just I didn't really know anything. The kind of naivety, I would have been maybe 20. And I just, I didn't know anything, just kind of wandering around and watching the fireworks off the Sydney Harbour Bridge on New Year's, and just that kind of moment. And I look back on it quite fondly, though I don't know if I could do it again. Because, once you become a bit more worldly, you sort of start to see through their naivety. And I only have my nostalgic memories of it to sort of fondly look back on.
But we do always look back fondly, don't we? Even though in the time we might have been sort of struggling, or struggling with anxiety or something like that, we always look back upon our life in a fond way.
Yeah. I think it's natural to just look back and have this kind of almost a reconciliation of your history and what you went through. Even if it was tough, you internalize it and integrate it into yourself.
What was a big turning point in your life that made you become the person you are now? Can you pinpoint something?
There's a couple of things, but I mean, it's a journey towards higher truth, and a journey towards being a good person and righteous, and not just in the shallow sense, but I'm reading The Republic at the moment, Plato, and he talks about, the good with a capital G kind of thing, and just what that means, and how, and as a young person, I didn't necessarily understand what that meant, but seeing all of the trouble in the world at the moment, and how it's all connected to kind of people, and sort of the negative things that people do, I realise how important it is, no matter what is happening in the world, to come back to that kind of universal truth and universal beauty and universal good, which it's a principle and it's a concept that doesn't exist in the physical world, but it's a concept that we can all aim for. And he talks about this quite a lot in the Republic. And I realise the last few years for me have been a realisation that universal goodness exists, and that there is a way to kind of work towards it. You could call it God in a sense, in a non kind of denominational sense, but it's recognizing that there is a greater idea, and that we're not just all just sitting here,
I still have I haven't figured out my thoughts behind like God and sort of that kind of spiritual sort of things, like I'm still trying to figure it out. And I do believe that we're all connected somehow in some way, but I can't put any words to that. sort of thing. I don't know how to explain it.
It's very difficult to conceptualize and put it into words, but yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of things that have happened, and just I think getting a bit older, you know, you start to see patterns emerge, and you know, especially as people start passing away, people are born, you know, you start to realize that there is a grand connection to a lot of things, and fate has it in store for many of us that our paths cross, I believe. And so whether we, you know, in one way or another, we're often led to meet the people that we need to meet, or whether it's that, or whether it's just the case that the people we meet are the people that we meet. It's kind of like Cloud Atlas, you know. Have you ever read that?
I've watched the movie. Absolutely love it. Yeah, love it.
And so, yeah, it's been I'd say probably for the last couple of years, it's been a search for truth and beauty, and recognizing that a lot of my work is in a way trying to scratch that surface. And so those are scratching, you know, physical representations of beauty and good and truth, but they're kind of just effigies of the great principle of it, and I'm very sensitive to that. And I think a lot about that, and I recognize that a lot of my inspirations, the people that I look towards, are also taking that route. But yeah, I'll just try and find. There's some interesting quotes in here. I've come back to this a couple of times in the last few days, but so this is the Republic, and it's very good. It takes a little while to get into. I'd say like the first half is kind of setting the scene, talking about sort of what it takes to create a society where philosophers can emerge, because he's writing from ancient Greece and there's a lot of issues, but he talks about the education system. He talks about and it's in this really interesting dialogue, kind of similar to what you and I are doing actually. I think he invented this kind of thing actually, but so it's I think it's just these Glaucon and Socrates just having a good old chat. So Plato's writing about Socrates, who was his mentor, and it's just these two guys and a couple of other characters just talking about these learnings of philosophy. But in regards to some of the stuff we've been talking about, you know, and how people have been persuaded and kind of brainwashed and taken on this bandwagon of thought, he says, when they crowd into the seats in the assembly or law courts or theatre, or get together in camp or any other popular meeting place, and with a great deal of noise and a great lack of moderation, shout and clap their approval or disapproval of whatever is proposed or done, till the rocks and the whole place re-echo and redouble the noise of the boos and applause, can a young man's heart remain unmoved by all of this? How can his individual training stand the strain? Won't he be swamped by the flood of popular praise and blame and carried away with the stream till he finds himself agreeing with popular ideas of what is admirable or disgraceful, behaving like the crowd and becoming one of them?
Wow, man, that's really powerful.
He's
There's
writing
a lot going on there, isn't
He's writing about this, 2,000 years ago, and he's nailed it, because this is exactly what's happened with the Twitter echo chambers, with the world. The sort of peer pressure of complying and just doing what seems to be the right thing.
There's literally what I was thinking as you were saying that. I was like, that sounds exactly like Twitter and what's going on over there at the moment.
Well, I mean, it's the forum, right? It's the ancient forum where you look around and say, well, what is everyone else saying? Okay, I'm going to do that too. And then that's what book? That's book 6, I think, part 7, book 6. And then he after that, where I'm up to at the moment, he just sort of talks about the good as ultimate object of knowledge, and it really just it's like having a concept, and he talks about, say, a painter, and he says that a painter cannot a painter cannot paint a picture without a reference. And so he's going to look at a picture. He's going to look at an actor or a person standing there, and he's going to look at that as he goes and paints the painting. But the painting itself isn't the person. There's no way that he can replicate that. And so in his idea, the just world can never be created, but it needs a reference point, and we can aim for it, and we might never achieve it, but it's still admirable to aim for that just and truthful world as kind of a concept, and it doesn't exist in this reality. It's only a concept, and this is, you got to think, this is 2,000 years ago. They didn't necessarily understand what does concept even mean. Most languages didn't even have the ability to describe that, so they had to use Greek. And so a lot of the words I remember reading about, you get words like connection or faction, like anything with the T-I-O-N at the end.
Yeah.
I believe that comes actually from Greek, because a lot of languages didn't have the ability to describe abstract concepts at that time. So they had to just take the idea. So, conception, abstraction, all of that is all Greek in concept. And so this is quite, and we take it for granted that we can think about a concept abstractly. But English at that time, or ancient languages, didn't have the ability to even describe it, and that's why the Republic is so important, I think, in the ancient Greek literature.
Do you mind if I get a bit meta for a second? Like,
yeah.
When you're reading, do you make notes, like in the margins, or do you like dog-ear pages that you like, or how do you read?
That particular page, because that was quite profound when I read that one. I just read you, so I dog-eared that one. But I do have a little book that I usually write stuff down when it comes along. But I only get through about 2 pages a night. It's pretty dense, and I just fall asleep. But it's sometimes I underline stuff. Sometimes I'll write it down.
Because that's one of the biggest problems with just consuming a book and just reading through it quickly. When I do that, I just sort of forget a lot of what I've read, and so in the past, like when I read meditations and stuff like that, I would always have a pencil in my hand, and I'd sort of like underline and dog-ear the bottom of the page when I found something that I really liked. But the other day I was sitting on the tube, and a lady was reading some book that looks like some kind of textbook, quite heavy reading sort of stuff, and she had just a bunch of post-it notes that she was going through and sticking on the pages, and then she would like write down the note. She'd write down the quote from what she was interested in, and I was like, that's actually quite genius, because the act of writing it down on that little sticky note is probably going to solidify it in your mind a lot more, rather than if you just read it and underline it and then dog-ear the page, that might slip out of your mind a lot quicker. But writing it down, you sort of formulated a little bit more. I thought it was genius. I might start doing that.
Yeah, it is a good idea. So there's 2 ways. I think there's, with fiction, just general just enjoying the fiction. You can actually just read through it, and just have a good old time.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I think that I'd consider this more sort of almost study, and so I don't really have a formal way of doing it. But I think I do kind of. It's probably about time I find a better way to just increase my reading comprehension, because I'm like you, I just forget things straight away. But often find coming back to the same phrase again and again, and just kind of really conceptualizing what does it mean, especially as you get into the second half of the Republic. Because I listened to a really good lecture series online before I actually brought the book. I listened to someone describe it. So I've also been. I think I have I prefer listening sometimes as well. Like reading and listening is like the ultimate combo. And so I listened to this podcast or this lecture series talking about the Republic, and then at a later date I picked up the book. And so all of the names, because some of the Greek names are a bit hard to know how to pronounce and that. So, but by hearing it, it makes it easier. You're ready to learn from the original source.
Yeah, I really like that. Can you send that over to me, please?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's I think it's like one of the best lectures I've ever heard, and it really goes into detail about how every single word in the Republic is chosen. Like even like I think the opening line, and he's like he talks about going down to some town. And he sort of it's sort of implying that he's going down into the world of the reality. I can't find it, but he sort of, because he's going up and down the staircase of like concept and then reality, and this was like one of the things that they open up the lecture series with, and so you start getting this kind of oh yeah, here we go. So I went down yesterday to the paralysis with Glaucon, son of Ariston, like, and it just sounds like the opening line, but he's going down into the world of the people and the reality, and democracy, and just trying to go down. But as you go further through the book, he goes back up the staircase to like the concept and the meta of how do you run a just society. And I was like, man, that's incredible. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of my light reading for the.
You're light reading 2 pages before bed before you fall asleep. I am still going through Underland by Robert Macfarlane. It's a big book, so it's a bit difficult to get through. Or not difficult. I shouldn't use the word difficult because it's a beautiful read. I've just passed through the part where he is in the catacombs under Paris. There's these giant caves of sort of, that all go under the metro and like through the metro and stuff. So I've just got past that. And I love it. I mean, it's a fantastic book. It's really gorgeous. I also picked up The Tropic of Capricorn by Henry Miller. And it's one of those books that were like banned in schools. They wouldn't read it because it's too, I think it's too raunchy. I just like getting books from the library, that's my pastime. I just collect the books from the library and then they're just sitting here waiting for me to read. Yeah,
I do like purchasing books though, to be fair. Like I got a few on order actually, so they should arrive probably today actually. But yeah, man, there's something about books and knowledge, and I was never like a super geeky about it, but I have always just been a reader. And I realize now, like that's actually quite rare. Like, and I even think like just the physicality of it, like because I got a printer now at the office, and so I'm thinking, oh man, next time I need to read something online, I'll probably just print it off and read it on on printed form, because I don't absorb it when it's on a screen.
On the screen, yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind just even have it, you print it off, you staple it together, and you just build like a file of these like shorter articles that you can just pull out if you need to read something, as opposed to, and you can highlight it and that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's been a bit of a discovery. And then I don't know, man, the other thing I've been getting into lately, which is, I don't know, it's tickling my nostalgia, something shocking, but having movie nights.
Oh, nice, man.
So, and I mean, this, and I was like setting it up. So what we do, so we play, if you like go on YouTube and you search for like cinema ambience, like cinema lobby sounds.
Yeah.
And you play that and you just get that running for like 5 minutes, dim the lights. And then you search for like cinema opening, whatever. And they got this like AMC cinema, like the opening scene where it's like, please, take your belongings with you. Don't, find your nearest exit. Kind of a little PSA message, and then we turn the movie on, and it just sets the tone.
Oh, that's so good.
And we're just working through the canon. So we watched Leon the Professional the other day, and then last night we watched The Others with Nicole Kidman, which is cool. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's just classic kind of thriller.
I don't think I've seen it. No.
Yeah, like this. It's kind of like a ghost story. And just like the classics of cinema. We watched Tokyo Story the other week. So just like working through it. But it takes me back to the old days, because I used to do that when I was younger and back in school and that. And it just seems like people don't have time anymore. And I find myself just thinking, man, this is a really good way to just chill out.
That's such a good idea, man. How did you think of that? I just love it.
Well, I mean, because anyone could just watch a movie, but the issue is, there's a couple of issues with like Netflix and that. I hate Netflix, but people just they got all of this choice, and I think that you get this decision paralysis, and so you've got all these options, but you don't end up watching any movies. You just watch the trailer for like 10 movies, And then the other thing is people just sit at their computer. And so, you got to make it into a thing, into a ritual, set up the screen, sit on the couch. Not everyone even has a TV these days. So obviously I'm watching on a big computer screen, but moving it around so it's like we've got this little spot where we can sit and watch as if it was a cinema. And just kind of rearrange things just for that and make it into a purposeful kind of a thing.
Wow. Do you get like popcorn and get some snacks out?
Actually, that's not a bad idea, man. I should do that next time. Yeah, and we've got a big speaker system as well, so it makes the sound kind of cinematic and rocks the room. We do drink a bit of wine though. I started drinking wine again.
Let's just go back to this decision paralysis thing that you said, because I've sort of fallen out of love with Spotify a little bit, because exactly what you say, man, like decision paralysis, there's too much to listen to, so I can't choose what to listen to. So what I do is I have every year I create a playlist of music that I've discovered that year. So songs that are new to me, I will put them in this playlist. So at the moment I got a 2022 playlist, and whenever I find a song randomly, if I'm like watching a movie or on YouTube or something and a song comes on and I really like it, I'll save it into that playlist. So going back to the decision paralysis thing, like there's too much choice on Spotify for me to listen to. So all I do is I keep listening to that 2022 playlist, which is great the first 50 times I listen to it because it's all new music, and then I'm just listening to it over and over and over again. And I've sort of found myself in a little bit of like every morning when I'm walking to work or whatever, I open up Spotify and I'm just staring at the screen. I'm like, right, I can't listen to my 2022 playlist because I've listened to it too much now, repeated it too much. What should I listen to? And I just freeze, and I just don't know what to put on. It's really, I'm broken.
No. So there's a couple of concepts. So number one, I think the search for novelty and just new music is a bit of a folly. I think music is the purest form of art, and it's just pure essence, because you have to listen to it at the speed that it was intended. With a photo or a painting, you can glance at it and not see it in the situation that it was supposed to be properly observed in. But with music, you have to listen to it as you click play and you listen to it second by second. That's how it works. And so,
real time.
Yeah, and so it is the purest form of art, no doubt. And then the kind of the concept of novelty and pop music and all of that, I think it's tied in with nostalgia, where you were in that moment and how you felt. And so, I'm maybe like my approach to it is I listen to the same kinds of music, and I have been for the last 10 years, same songs, and I come back to them, and there's truth within them, but really what it is truth within myself. And so I listen to the same song, and constantly, every single moment, it's familiar. Every kind of everything that was in it, I'm able to kind of parse that information. So to find a new song that just can come in and I can just welcome it into my life, it has to be quite special. And I think just being kind of listening to anything, and that's why I hate the algorithm, because I like to be in control. I do like the algorithm's recommendations, but I don't like just auto playing the next song and not knowing what I'm getting into, which is why I prefer YouTube, because I have to actively click what kind of looks like it wants to be listened to. But regarding decision paralysis, like I think there's music for situations as well. Like there's music for motion, there's music for contemplation, music for working. I have a playlist for like going to work, going to the office. I've got literally like a playlist here called Deep Focus, which is my work music. And I've got like 400, 300 plays on each song, each track, and it's a lot of your stuff in there, a lot of different ambient sort of stuff, but it's very much like my workplace. I can just click that and it's going to take me into that space, and it's just sort of the noise of work. And then every so often you find a new artist and you're like, damn, that's cool. Like recently, Ulrich Schnaus, I discovered, a friend recommended it, and someone's recommendation is always better than the algorithm.
Always.
And so because I also think, I trust that person, and so now we're connected to that song as well. Whereas, just the AI bot giving you the recommendation is a bit.
Yeah, and that's why like record stores used to be really a special place, right? Because you could go to an independent record store and you could chat to the staff there, chat to the owner, chat to the guy behind the counter, whatever. And that you're going to get something interesting if you ask them, what are you listening to at the moment, or what do you recommend? Or, we've sort of lost out on that a little bit. I really miss that.
Yeah, AI can't replace that sort of thing, man. And ultimately, the kind of human validation and just like letting yourself, even if you don't necessarily like what you've been recommended, like letting yourself be exposed to human recommendations and the way humans transmit information between each other. And so you can start like a movement, and you can, and it becomes these bubbles of culture. And like some of the stuff that's inspired me and changed my life the most has been through that sort of recommendation. Rarely is it discovery on AI kind of algorithmic discovery, and every now and then it is. But even then, it's still I'm being presented options, and I'm choosing an option that I like, and adding that to a list and that sort of thing. The idea of like listening to just a playlist that's automatically generated, it's quite uncomfortable for me, just because it's too it's too like random.
You don't know what's coming up next, which is not a nice feeling. But it's quite nice about YouTube and their algorithm. Like that recommended bar on the right hand side of your screen, because when you're listening to music that you have chosen, like if I type in Aphex Twin or something, and then that recommended bar on the right will always give, like you say, like a mix of stuff, and you can interact with it yourself, and you can choose the album artwork that you like the look of, or the title, or maybe you've heard of that band before but never listened to them or something like that. And I find that YouTube algorithm is somehow very, very good. Spotify is not so good. They play a lot of the same stuff, but YouTube is nailing it. Yeah,
I mean, the other thing is to make YouTube usable. There's two plugins that I use. So one is called AutoTube. Every now and then you might find, like, if you have YouTube running in a background tab, it will say, this video paused, are you still listening? And you have to click yes, otherwise it just, I don't know why they do that, but it stops that happening. And then the more important one is called hide YouTube comments. And I don't even know, like, I just forget that YouTube has this like comment section, because and there is another one that I've tried that makes YouTube, it strips off more stuff, but I found that it was breaking some of the YouTube functions. But I might try that one again. But it just makes it into this like cinematic thing with just the thumbnails and then the video you're watching.
That's nice.
And yeah, because the other thing about Spotify is that I often listen to remixes and just like independent people, and not everyone's on Spotify. Whereas most people are on YouTube, even like small remix channels and that. So yeah, that's sort of how, and I have it just running, and then I can, because it's ambient, like longer works usually, I love listening to like 1 or 2 hour tracks, then I can just, or albums, I can just leave it running and then come back to it and change songs later. Yeah, the other thing was shorter music, you can, I like listening to stuff on repeat. That gets a bit sort of, that's not everyone's thing, but I do that.
It depends how short it is, right? But I think that's really good for continuous work, right? Like especially something like writing or coding or doing some sort of like repetitive work, listening to the same track over and over again. I think a lot of people say that this really helps. But that plugin, hide YouTube comments, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's you have to use it. I mean, YouTube comments are just disgusting.
Well, the funny thing is like it depends which community you are sort of, or which kind of topic you're searching for. So if you go to something like, if you search Brian Eno Thursday afternoon, and if you go down into the comments below that video, you will see people like reaching out to strangers and saying, hey, hope you have a good day. You know, life is tough at the moment, I understand, but you know, we are sharing this moment together, we're here together, let's enjoy this music, don't worry about the pandemic, you know, all these things. It's this really interesting sort of culture that is evolving on some YouTube channels. It's not all of them, of course. Like a lot of the, you know, a lot of the big popular channels at the moment, where they're very new and they're very current, they're just like the comments are absolutely flooded with awful stuff. But something about these sort of, especially music YouTube comments are quite lovely. Yeah, like I said, it's people reaching out to each other and sort of like communicating about these things that are really difficult in life.
Yeah. And
I sent you this video earlier about the Aphex Twin the Aphex Twin ambient mix. And if we look down into the comments, first track got me in tears, incredibly beautiful and sad. And then, you know, somebody's replying to that and just sort of, it's just a really nice place, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so I just looked for Thursday afternoon. So there's a comment here. Listening to this on a minibus in Hong Kong on the way home after 12 hours in the office, my life could be so simple, yet over the years I've collected complications that I'm now welded to. This gives me hope that a simpler life isn't far away.
That's great. I love it.
That's poetry, you know?
That's poetry in the YouTube comments. Yeah.
Oh man, you know, you got me sold. Like I guess I just sort of did a blanket ban on anything like comments, and I was like, but every now and then, because what you can is just, if you open like a private tab and open the video, it like bypasses the plugin. And what these comments remind me of as well, because it's like usernames, you know, it's not like people, you know, everyone here just looking at these Thursday afternoon comments, they're all just like fake name kind of, you know, handles. But they remind me of, I might have told you about everything2.com.
Yes,
that website.
You did.
And for me, that takes me back to the early days, well, not early, but, you know, an earlier time in the internet when, you know, you had this website, everything2.com, where people could write these little nodes, these little stories about anything and just connect them all together. And it was kind of like a diary for everyone to see, and you can just search for any topic and you'll find everything from just a dictionary definition of that topic through to like a full anecdotal story. And it's kind of like a humanized Wikipedia kind of thing, because, you know, you search for Mishima Yukio and there'll be like, you know, Japanese author, 1925, 1970, and then there'll be like, oh, what Mishima Yukio meant to me, and then and it's like the whole spectrum. And I've found some stuff on there, and I'm like, man, this feels like I wrote it. You know what I mean? Even though it's like someone from like 2004. You know, and it's like,
still
wow,
active. Are people still writing?
I mean, it's definitely a shell of its former self. But it's like this considered, contented kind of internet where we were still trying to work out. And I mean, there would have been trolls back then as well, but it was like, I just had like a texture to it in a community, which I still lament and think, man, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like the early days of MySpace, or like even the early days of Facebook. Like back then, everything was sort of happy, and people were just content with coding their website to make it flashy or to make it have a HTML banner or something like that. Everyone was it was simple.
The world was easier, yeah. I mean, and maybe it was because we were younger, but the other thing I did yesterday, man, I was talking to Rena about Half-Life 2. And I was like, look, you know, this is, for me personally, this is the best game of all time. You know, this is just at the right point in my life where, you know, I got exposed to this, the storytelling, everything. And I brought it on Steam. It's like $12. And it runs on my Mac. And it's funny because I always remember it being like this, like really, when we first got it, our computers weren't good enough to run it, but now I can just run it on my Mac, like full settings, no problem. And we were just playing through it, and she played through it for a little bit. It was interesting actually seeing her, because she's not really a gamer, so it was like seeing someone like naive to gaming kind of give it a go. But then I played through it myself last night, and I was like, man, this is still really, really good. Like, it's storytelling, it's ambience, the world as it is today, and then like in real life, and then also what the story is talking about. It's like, actually, I can sort of, it was kind of preparing for that. Just the dystopian aspect of it, which we always just sort of dreamed about, but it's actually kind of coming true now. And we've got, these characters and everything, and it's kind of like the good and the bad. It's simplistic, but also quite telling of reality, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, you just sort of reminded me of what you said a second ago about music, and how music means something to you because of who you were when you heard it.
Yes.
And it's true. If I play some old music that I really loved when I was a teenager, if I play that to Chia or one of my friends or something like that, and I say like, this is the best song ever. I really love this song, right? This is really amazing. And of course, it never hits. Like they don't feel that, and I'm like, it's because of who I was back then, right? And that's why I really love it. So take Rush, for example, the Canadian prog rock band Rush. Like, when I was young, 15-year-old boy learning how to play bass, listening to Rush was like heaven for me. Like, it was just absolutely perfect because I was learning bass at the time, and I was really inspired by Geddy Lee and everything. But if I play that to a friend now, like this 70s prog rock band, they're just going to be like, what the heck is this? But also that ties into something like Half-Life. I never played Half-Life 1 or 2, or I don't know, is there 3 now or something? But like, if I played that now, I don't know if I would appreciate it as much as you did, because of who you were back then when you first played it. No, totally. I mean, I think it's possible, just like with a film, to kind of watch it and be like, oh man, this is a great thing, right? Because it is a narrative. Like, I think with music, it is so condensed, and it's a vibe. Whereas I think with narrative stuff like film and games, you can still appreciate older stuff. But yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the same kind of total emotional feeling that you would have had at the time. And it's interesting you mentioned like these older bands, because I'm similar. When I was growing up, it was all like 70s, 80s, and I really love the Electric Light Orchestra. Love them.
And people are like, what? Like, what is that? Because like, I don't know. It's like a generational thing where I listen to a lot of older stuff, but today it's like people don't even know, and so I'm getting flagged as being like an old man. Like, the algorithm thinks that I'm like this like ancient person because I love ELO, but actually it's just I got exposed to a lot of that stuff, and it sounds like yourself as well.
How did you get exposed to ELO?
I think my mum liked it, and I used to just listen to it in the car. And that's why, like just some of the albums, and I really love the concept album, Time, 1981. And just like some of the music that is, quite, I mean, because they consider Jeff Lynne, actually, I don't know if you knew this, but they consider him like the fifth Beatle, because he produced George Harrison, and he was like hanging out with those guys in the early days. But because his thing was more like, he did the pop music of ELO, but he did a lot of producing on the back end. And then he had that Traveling Wilburys with like Roy Orbison, George Harrison, and all those guys. And it's just like one of these like grey figures that people don't really know. People don't even know what he looks like, but his fingerprint is all over popular music.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Trevor Horn as well. Trevor Horn was a massive producer back then, and he had his fingers in all the pies.
So yeah, I find like even like ELO Telephone Line, which I put into that clip that I sent you the other day.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, man.
I was wondering what that song was.
And so I was listening to that like over and over, just like literally like 20 times in a row. Just there's another YouTube site you can use, and it repeats the song. And I get into it, and it gets me into this like trance-like state, I guess. That's a bit strong, but like, you know, I just listen to it over and over as I'm trying to work and like capturing that feeling. And so there's a few songs that I do that with sometimes when I identify a pop song, because they are so short. They're like little sugar hits, and you identify a pop song that gives you that vibe, and then you just listen to it again and again as you create. Which is different to an ambient piece, which is like longer, and you listen to it once maybe.
Today I was listening to that Aphex Twin ambient video that I sent you on YouTube, and I was a little bit sad that, because I had to start work on the Wander the Night stuff. I had to start doing the mastering for that, and I was thinking to myself, it's such a shame that I can't listen to music while I'm writing music. Like, how sad is that? You know, like I could watch a movie, you know, maybe I'd turn it down low so I couldn't get distracted by the sound. But, you know, I could put a movie on in the background. But anything audio based, I could never listen to a podcast while writing music. I can't listen to music while writing music.
So you can only do one thing, eh? It's difficult. But yeah, man, no, it's all good. And speaking of Wander the Night, though, I had a good listen to how the masters that you sent through the other day. Yeah, man, it's coming together. It's giving me the vibes.
Yeah, I'm really getting into it. Like this side B is going to be really special, especially the second half of side B. That's what I'm working on at the moment, and really creating sort of the soundscape of Tokyo that, you know, that I really remember, and I'm sure you really remember from our time there. Like Tokyo has a specific sound.
Sonic fingerprint.
Sonic fingerprint, exactly. So trying to do that, but I find that, you know, if you do sort of think back about your time in Japan and Tokyo specifically, you'll probably remember that Tokyo has a lot of jingles. Like when you go into a convenience store, there's a jingle, and when you're standing on the platform of the train, there's a jingle playing over the tannoy. And I really want to put something like that into Wander the Night, but it just clashes with the music. You know, these like jingles, they just don't. It's not the same key, not the same melody as my sort of ambient sounds. But I'll try and find a place. It'll be quite nice.
It's strange because it's been so long for me that I'm sure I'm going to go back and it's going to be like, oh wow, you know. And as I said just before, we were talking about this dream I had last night about wandering around Serbia, you know, Belgrade or something, and just feeling like I'm back into this wandering mode. And what I really look forward to is getting a bicycle and just going for a big bike out the back, like West Tokyo, and on the twilight summer night, just, you know, out with no destination in mind. Maybe stop along the way and pick up some bread and a warm, a cold can of coffee, and have a small sort of twilight picnic somewhere, watching the small streams, maybe the stars come out, and just like the whole thing that is encapsulated with that, which it's been so long.
Yeah, since your nighttime wanders, like, you know, this is what I'm thinking about for my journey, on my trip to Japan in the next couple of weeks. Like my gut reaction is to absolutely cram my holiday full of seeing this and that and going here and there and like having dinner here and going down to Tokyo, stuff like that. Fill up my diary. But actually I think it would be better for some days to just like make no plan whatsoever, and then just see where the night takes us.
Unstructured time, you know. And I think but because you've been away for a while, I think just having a decompression period will be essential. Quarantine will probably do that for you as well, but just also being able to just go and not have to be anywhere. I hate having plans when I'm traveling. I just like maybe like a meeting with one person, and everything else just like coalesces as it may. The routine is for the normal life. I think when you're traveling, it's like just throw that all out the window. All right, man. Well, it's good to reconnect and talk about some of these ideas. It's great to touch base on the Republic too, because I'm keen to continue down this train of thought with what Plato is saying, and just kind of go deeper into what he's trying to do, because I feel like there's answers there, or at least some guidance to help us navigate this kind of crazy world we live in. But yeah, let's. I don't know if we're going to catch up again before you head off. We might have a little call just about the project. But besides that, I hope you have a good time in Japan.
Thanks, man. I'm really keen. I'm really excited. I'll bring you something nice back.
Yeah, omiyage. Yeah, all right, man. Well, I'll catch you later, and we'll touch base again soon.
Cool, man. Yeah, speak soon. Take care, buddy.